want to jump right into the fact that yesterday I received my first YouTube community standards violation. Now, I can't for the life of me understand why I got it. Their claim was that I was spreading disinformation about the COVID-19 vaccine, which is not the case. I quoted something that was said by the Pfizer CEO. So the only thing that I can imagine is that they just didn't like the fact that the Pfizer CEO, the manufacturer of the vaccine, said what he said, and they don't want me to repeat it. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to come on here today, and I wanted to talk about, I actually got copies of the community standards policy, the COVID-19 medical misinformation policy. I'm going to read a little bit of this to you guys so you can kind of see what it is that people who operate on YouTube have to actually deal with on a regular basis. It says, YouTube doesn't allow content about COVID-19 that poses a serious risk or egregious harm. Now, nothing I said yesterday does any of that. YouTube doesn't allow content that spreads medical misinformation that contradicts local health authorities, LHA, or the World Health Organization's, WHO, medical information about COVID-19. This is limited to content that contradicts WHO or local health authorities' guidance on treatment, prevention, diagnosis, transmission, social distancing, and self-isolation guidelines, the existence of COVID-19. Note, YouTube policies on COVID-19 are subject to change in response to the changing to global or local authorities' guidance on the virus. There may be a delay between new LHA/WHO guidance and policy updates given the frequency with which this guidance changes. And our policies may not cover all LHA/WHO guidance related to COVID-19. Our COVID-19 policy were first published on May 20th, 2020. Now, I'm not going to go into every little thing about the policy. What I will say is that I think it's fucking bullshit. I think it's outrageous that someone like me can come on here and have an opinion simply about my life. I'm not a medical professional. My regular job is in construction. What I know is what affects me. What I can say is that I'm not vaccinated. I am not anti-vaccination. I think that vaccination is good, and I think that anybody who wants to get vaccinated should get vaccinated. I do believe that it does serve a purpose, and I do believe that it is good for some people. What I am a firm believer in is that it is not good for me personally. That is my personal opinion about myself. I don't care what the fuck anybody else does with their life. That is their business. What I care is about my life. I care about what affects me, how it affects me. I think it is outrageous that I am told that I am not allowed to, on a global platform, talk about my opinion and my experience. Yet we have a president who stands at a podium on a daily basis, well, actually not daily, but when he does get up at a podium, he's not wearing a mask. He's not exercising social distancing guidelines. He's not protecting himself, but yet everybody else is supposed to obey a standard that is hypocritical to what the administration is setting up. The press secretary, Jen Psaki, whenever she's at a podium, no reporter ever asks her why she's not wearing a mask. I watched a video yesterday. It's about Ted Cruz. And every time Ted Cruz gets up at a podium to talk, some reporter asks him, says, "Why aren't you wearing a mask? Why aren't any of the people at the podium wearing a mask?" And you could tell Ted Cruz had had enough of it. He'd been fed up with that shit, and he simply said, "Hey, I understand that you want to ask us this question, but why? I would love to see anybody in the press corps, anybody in the press, to ask President Biden the same question. Why is he standing at the podium without wearing a mask? Why is Jen Psaki standing at a podium without wearing a mask?" I believe that's a little bit of hypocrisy. Now, Do masks do they work? I don't know. I don't know all of the rules and guidelines, and I'm certainly not going to tell anybody they shouldn't wear a mask. What I am going to say is don't do something and then expect everybody else to do something different. Don't behave a certain way and then expect that everybody else should behave differently. I'm a firm believer that you get what you get back what you give, and that you should lead by example. And if your example is that everybody should be wearing a mask, well, then you yourself should wear a mask. I manage a company. And if I believe that everybody at the company should be wearing a mask, I would instruct them all to wear masks. My company, we do not have a mask or vaccine policy. Other than if we go to a customer's residence or if we interact with somebody and they request that we wear a mask, then we obey their wishes. Ultimately, it's their home. If they want somebody in their home wearing a mask, then we will certainly wear a mask if that's what is requested. But I don't force anybody in my company to get a vaccine. We're just not required to. Now, that's not misinformation. That is a fact. There's no mandate for it. We're not a government entity. And the Supreme Court ruled that we don't have to. Okay, those are facts. It's not spreading of misinformation. These are facts. And again, I'm not a medical professional. I'm just giving my opinion about certain things that sit out there that seem very fucking odd to me. And I think it's extremely egregious that YouTube would censor my video, that would pull it down completely simply because I quoted the CEO of Pfizer. I think that's outrageous. So, where I was going to go from there is the fact that what a lot of you guys may not know is that in 2017, the BBC formed an organization within the BBC. It was called the Trusted News Initiative, the TNI. It is to combat the spread of harmful vaccine disinformation and announces major research project. Now, the TNI, BBC, the British Broadcasting Channel, it's a news network. And they formed this organization that is so far-reaching. And what they do is they actually go out and they monitor what people are putting out there, and they've created policies for all of these organizations to abide by. Think of it in the terms of like OSHA. OSHA's a non-government organization that creates standards of safety for the workplace. They go out and create all these standards, and private organizations have to abide by them. These are policies and procedures. Well, you have a private organization such as the BBC who created an initiative called the Trusted News Initiative that literally says, we are going to monitor the disinformation and spread of disinformation of COVID-19. I'm going to read to you guys some of the members, the people that have signed on to this initiative. This is straight off of the BBC's website. The partners currently within the TNI are the AP, Associated Press, AFP, BBC, CBC, Radio Canada, European Broadcasting Union, Facebook, Financial Times, First Draft, Google/YouTube, The Hindu, Microsoft, Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism, Twitter, and the Washington Post. Now, you have these exact organizations that are the most censoring organizations out there. We all know about the YouTube fact checkers, the Facebook fact checkers. And they've openly admitted that those people don't have enough time to actually read or listen to or watch everything that is posted. They search for keywords, and I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. Within YouTube, when you post a video to YouTube, you have an area that's called tags. You can add tags to your video. Now, what that actually is, it's not like hashtags when you're posting a picture on Instagram or putting something up on Twitter where you put a hashtag and you say hashtag working out, and then everybody who has at some point searched for working out, it shows up in the algorithm and it may be presented to them. No. YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world behind Google. So what they have done is they have allowed people to create tags, which is essentially search engine optimization, SEO. And you can put words in there, you can put sentences in there, you can put anything in there that would make people search your video. So if you're doing a video on, and you want to, a YouTube creator is obsessed, or their channel is based on Marvel Comics, they're going to go in there and they're going to put in search terms for the Spider-Man movie, and they're going to put in search terms for the Batman. They may just type Batman, or they may say review of new Spider-Man movie. They may put those things in there so that if someone goes into Google, they type in review of new Spider-Man movie, and the chance of that video coming up is increased because that tag is associated with the video. So what I did yesterday is I created several tags that were related to COVID-19 within my video. If you watch the video is on Facebook at this point. It does not in any way disseminate any misinformation about COVID-19. Everything I said is from the WHO or from the CEO of Pfizer. But in the search terms, I did put some questions that people may ask. I'm just a normal guy. I'm just a guy who thought that maybe I had enough fun things or important things to say to put it in front of camera that maybe other people wanted to watch. Maybe you wanted to listen to it. And so, but I know what I would search for on the internet if I had questions. So I typed those things in there. So I typed in search information that if I had these similar questions, that I would be looking for if I went to Google. I'll tell you on a daily basis, I use Microsoft Excel. And the program is fantastic. I'll tell you, YouTube is fantastic for that because I'm constantly coming up against different things for making my Excel spreadsheets that I use for different avenues and different various operations within the company. I'm constantly using Excel's formulas, and I'm constantly coming up against something that I don't know. For example, today I needed to I needed to know all of the cells within a particular column that had text in it. Well, there's a formula for that. You can do a formula. It's called count A, COUNTA, equals count A. And then you tell it what cells you want it to look within, and then it'll add up a total, a numerical number to tell you how many cells within that column have text within it. Not how many letters are in each cell. It'll literally tell you if you have 10 columns with text in them, it'll tell you the number 10. But say you've got 50 columns and only 42 of them have text in it because there's spaces in between, the number will calculate to 42. Well, I needed that. Not that it's an important thing, but I wanted it on this particular spreadsheet because I wanted to count something. Well, I went to Google and I typed that into Google. How do I count the cells with text in it within a column? And it immediately brought up the answer to it. It brought up the answer at the very top, but it also suggested several YouTube videos for me to watch. And that's a fantastic search tool. That's a fantastic resource for people around the world. So if you're creating a YouTube video and you're creating this video based on this particular topic, you're going to put those tags, those search terms within your tags so that it comes up when somebody happens to be looking for how to count the amount of cells within a column with text in it. Well, that's what I did. What I did was I put some tags in the video, not text in the video, not words actually in the video. I put up some tags within the video so that when it would be searched, if people were typing these particular things in, they would find it and maybe my video would be presented. That's the fucking purpose of putting stuff out there, is that you want it to reach the broadest audience possible. So now what they're not only restricting what you actually put on the video, they actually are restricting what people are able to search for. In the video yesterday, I talked about the control and the ability. This I know I can talk about. In the video yesterday, I talked about how the government doesn't necessarily want to step in and fuck with somebody like Google and Facebook. Why? Because they have such a far-reaching effect on society. I talked about in the video yesterday that Mark Zuckerberg owns 55%. Him and his wife own 55% of Facebook. They're worth several hundred or couple $100 billion. Facebook does $9 billion a quarter in profit on ad sales and the selling of your information that we all give up freely. Everything you put into Facebook is information for them to figure out how to market to you best. And so they sell that information out to other corporations. It's no different than when you go and buy something and you use your Visa card or your MasterCard. All of that data, that transaction of what you purchased within that transaction, where you bought it, when you bought it, all of that gets logged into a system. And the MasterCard network and the Visa network, they aggregate all that information and they sell that off. They sell that off in data packages to other organizations, other corporations that may want to market to somebody who happens to have the same shopping habits and patterns that you do. So that's how Facebook makes money. Well, you've all seen it. Everybody's seen it. We've all seen Mark Zuckerberg get up on TV when he's at Capitol Hill and he's answering questions, but they never do anything about it. They never talk about the effect. They never really do anything about what social media actually does to society. Why? Because if Mark Zuckerberg or Facebook wanted to, they could systematically change the entire way, the way everybody in the world thinks. What I talked about yesterday was the word fuck. I love saying the word fuck. By this point, I've probably said it at least 5 times. I don't know if I've been recording now for about 10 minutes, but I've probably said it about 5 times. Fuck. There's a 6th time. But if Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook wanted to, they could change the algorithm just so that the word fuck could not be typed in anything. It couldn't show up in a picture. It couldn't be in a video. If anything had it with there with whatsoever, either they could mute it out, they could bleep it, they could remove it altogether, they could just cancel out the post altogether. If that's what they wanted to do. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but systematically what you would have is the word fuck being removed completely from the vocabulary. You would see it less and less and less, and it would have less and less association and effect with the overall world. Again, that may sound funny, but that's what they can literally do. Facebook is a private entity. Government only has so much control over it, and they certainly don't have control over their IP, their intellectual property, and they can't tell them how to run the business. But if Facebook really wanted to, which they have, they've gone in and they've eliminated the way certain people can post certain things, and you get banned and you get restricted and you get this, you get warnings, you get all these things that limit your ability to share on social media or interact on social media. If you posted certain things about January 6th, they were pulling those posts down. If you said certain things negatively towards Biden, they would pull those down. You notice they never pulled down the video, the picture that Kathy Griffin posted with an effigy of Donald Trump, his head all bloody. It was clearly Donald Trump's head, an effigy of Donald Trump's head, bleeding, as if his head had been cut off. That picture's never been pulled down. Twitter never removed it. You can find it on the internet today. But try to find the article about Hunter Biden's laptop. Twitter made it to where the New York Post, one of the oldest publications in the world, was unable to share their article across the Twitter platform and almost anywhere else. They could not share the article that they wrote about Hunter Biden's laptop, just going prior to the election. But yet, if any time you wanted, there was any number of article that was speculating about the nonsense about Donald Trump and the Ukraine and collusion and all these things, all this stuff was being spread around forever. But a physical laptop that the FBI acknowledged they had in their possession that had certain things on it that had been talked about, that was revealed to the New York Post, could not be talked about on Twitter. And other social media platforms were censoring and limiting that article as well. You could not post it on Facebook. You could not share excerpts of it on YouTube. It was gone. All of that just prior to the election. Because had that come out, had there been damning information about Joe Biden and the Ukraine and the collusion that was actually going on with Hunter Biden, how does somebody like Hunter Biden, who has no history in the energy and oil sector whatsoever, get a board seat on the largest oil production company in the Ukraine? How? And why did that organization, why were they making such large payments to Hunter Biden with no previous experience? Unless the purpose was to gain influence over then Senator Joe Biden. And then all these other organizations protected their interest in that by covering it up. So it didn't come out prior to the election, therefore allowing Joe Biden to be elected president. And now look what we've got. You've got a president who spent over 50%. So everybody wants to make fun of Trump because he was golfing. Everybody want to make fun of Bush because he was at his Texas ranch. But why aren't we hearing all the time about how the first year in office, Joe Biden spent over 50% of his time in Connecticut? That's his home state. That's where he's from. That's where he was a senator. He was a member of Congress, member of the Senate for 40 years, based out of Connecticut. Okay, so he wants to go home. Fine. But why aren't we talking about it? If it was fair game to talk about Donald Trump constantly being down at Mar-a-Lago, why aren't we talking about Joe Biden constantly being in Connecticut, spending 50% of his time there? So it's very clear what you see is constantly a one-sided censorship. It's not about equal censorship. It's not about everybody gets the same exact treatment. It's only about one side. And the sad part is that they're really not even censoring information on the other side. They just don't talk about it. They choose not to talk about it. They don't discuss it whatsoever. And that's pretty fucking disgusting to me. That's pretty fucking disgusting. Another thing that I wanted to talk about today, this is a poll. A lot of people have heard about this. I was actually talking to Fred about this earlier, and we happened to be listening to the radio, and the broadcasters came on, and they actually discussed this. This is a poll from the Rasmussen Reports. Rasmussen is a polling organization that goes out and they talk to people and they post these polls. And you can go online and you can search them out. It's very easy. They list all of their polls right on their website, and you can find the articles right there. This one was published on January 13th, 2022. It's called COVID-19, Democrat Voters Support Harsh Measures Against the Unvaccinated. This is a poll that is out there. This is very disturbing to me. This is an extremely disturbing attitude that you see. Okay. It says they did the poll by phone. It says that that the survey finds 48% of voters favor President Joe Biden's plan to impose COVID-19 vaccine mandate on the employees of large companies and government agencies. So now the majority of people are not in favor of it. Now, it does say that the vast majority of Democrats embrace restrictive policies, but the majority of people polled. Now, I'm going to look into these numbers. I don't know exactly how many people were polled. I don't know what percentages of the people that were polled were Democrats and Republicans, but what they did put out here is the numbers of people that identify as Democrats, how they voted. Again, I don't know. They could have polled 100 people. They could have polled 5,000 people. But the information here is based on the Democrats, the people that they polled that identified themselves as Democrats. Okay. So 48% of people, of Democrats, believe that in the mandates from Joe Biden. That includes 33% who strongly favor the mandate, 48% who oppose, 48% are opposed to the Biden's mandate, including 40% who strongly oppose. Again, it doesn't say in here whether these are all Democrats or a mixture of Democrats and Republicans. But from what I can tell, it looks like they're talking about Democrats. Here's where it starts to get very, very odd. Okay. 45% of people view Fauci favorably, including 28 who have a very favorable. 48% view him unfavorably, with 34% very unfavorable. So it's pretty well split 50-50 whether people like Fauci or not. But the people that don't like him have a much stronger opinion about not liking him. Okay. While 78% of Democrat voters support the Biden administrative COVID-19 vaccine mandate, only 22% of Republicans and 41% of voters not affiliated with either party support the vaccine mandates. So Democrats obviously strongly support the mandate. They strongly support their president. Not a fucking surprise. It's not a surprise that you're going to have a percentage of Republicans that support it. That's just the way the world works. Not everything is 50-50 on every single item, and not everybody who aligns, I actually talked about this yesterday, not everybody who lines themselves as a Republican is necessarily conservative from the traditional term, and not everybody from the Democrat side is liberal from the traditional terms. I myself would be defined as liberal. I'm a very liberal person. I do believe in certain core values. I do believe in lower taxes. I don't believe that anybody should be telling me what to do. I'm not in favor of telling a woman what she should do with her body, though I'm not in favor of abortion. It's kind of a split issue on me, okay? So I would be defined as somebody who is liberal, but because I'm more conservative or I affiliate with more conservative values, I'm going to be associated with Republicans. I think more fair term for me would probably be a libertarian. So, but for some reason, we've now convoluted the two together to believe that if you're Republican, or they're all synonymous with each other, and to say that automatically if you're a conservative individual, you're a Republican, and if you're a liberal individual, you're a Democrat. It's not the fucking case. The traditional classic terms for conservative and liberal are not party-centered. They're not deeply rooted within one party or another. And quite honestly, the people that would have considered themselves liberal 30 years ago are not the same people that are liberal today. You don't see it. They have liberals did not mean these outlandish, crazy fucking ideas about taking away everybody's rights. I mean, my God, having to walk around with papers, everybody wants to call people on the right, call them Nazis and all of this other stuff. But what did Nazis do? Nazis required people to walk around with identification papers and tell them who they are and where they've been and their religious association. Well, you don't have to have a piece of paper now to tell you what your religious association is, but you do have to provide some medical information on there. That's not coming from what you would consider a conservative or Republican. It's kind of odd to me. So now we get down into some of these crazy things. Okay. The survey found that 75% of the likely Democrat voters, but only 20% of the Republican voters and 38% of the unaffiliated voters have a favorable opinion of Dr. Fauci. 58% of the voters oppose a proposal for federal or state governments to fine Americans who choose not to get the COVID-19 vaccine. It says 55% of Democrats, people who associated and identified themselves as Democrats, would support a proposal to fine Americans for not getting the COVID-19 vaccine. 55% of people who claim to be Democrats would choose to have someone like me who's not vaccinated and will not get the vaccine, that I should be fined, that I should pay a fine for not getting vaccinated. 59% of Democrats would favor a government policy requiring that citizens remain confined to their homes at all times except for emergencies if they refuse to get the COVID-19 vaccine. You have 59% of the people that identify themselves as Democrats that say I should not be able to leave my house if I don't get the vaccine. That is fucking outrageous. 59% of people that identify themselves as Democrats say I shouldn't be able to leave my home, with the exception of emergencies. If they refuse to get if they refuse to get it. Such a proposal is opposed by 61% of all likely voters, including 79% Republicans and 71% of unaffiliated voters. So clearly, this leads into something else that has transpired, is that you have, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but you've had a major shift over the past couple months of people who affiliate themselves as either Democrats or Republicans. The number actually was very even. Years ago, it was very much higher that people would associate, or they would vocalize that they were Democrat. Then it changed over the past couple of years, and it was very even. It was about 50-50 that people would identify themselves as either Republican or Democrat. But now that number has actually shifted for the first time in quite some years, where more people are identifying themselves as Republicans than Democrats. So what you have is 59% of these people that associate themselves or call themselves Democrats. That number overall is shrinking, but that's still a very large number of people that would say, I should not be able to leave my house with the exception of an emergency unless I agree to get the vaccine. Very disturbing. 48% of Democrat voters think federal and state government should be able to fine or imprison individuals who publicly question the efficacy of the existing COVID-19 vaccines on social media, television, radio, or in online or digital publications. So if you have a conversation with somebody and you make a post on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, I understand, hey, YouTube can ban anybody they want if they question the vaccine, their efficacy of the vaccines, which is not what I did yesterday, but apparently they believe I did. I understand that YouTube can make that policy. They are a private entity. They're a they're a publicly traded organization, but they're a corporation. They're not a federal organization. And if they choose to have a policy in place to not allow that type of information on their platform, they can do it. And then people like me can choose to either put my content on something like YouTube or Facebook or not. That's my choice. I choose to put it here and here and here and here. And I know that going in because I agree to these standards and policies. But what these people are saying is that the federal government either the federal government or the state governments should be able to fine anybody who questions the efficacy of the vaccines. Again, think about that. You don't have the Republicans running around saying that Democrats should be fined. You have Democrats running around saying that, because it's largely the other side around. Right now, 75% of the people that are not vaccinated, it's 75. President Biden said today on an interview that nearly 75% of all adults in the country are vaccinated, leaving 25% of 25% of adults not vaccinated. President Biden said that just today on the news. Okay? Well, I fall into that small percentage. And unfortunately, that percentage is largely made up of minorities and Republicans. I'm not for or against the vaccine for anybody else. For me, I'm just not going to get it. The numbers don't add up for me right now. But to tell me I'm going to be fined, to tell me that I should be fined or I should be imprisoned in my home, actually, I apologize. Now it goes down to beyond that. It says that I should not only should I be fined here, but that the federal government, 59%, I backed up on this. 48%, if you question it, you should be fined. 45% of Democrats would favor government requiring citizens to temporarily live in designated facilities or locations if they refuse to get the COVID-19 vaccine. You mean like an internment camp? A gulag? I mean, I'm Jewish. So you're telling me I should go to a concentration camp? Is that what that's is? 45% of people say I should have to go live in a temporary designated facility if I don't get the vaccine. That wasn't Donald Trump. That wasn't the Republicans. That's not conservatives saying that shit. That's 45% of Democrats believe that people should be removed from their homes and be forced to live in a temporarily designated facility if they don't get vaccinated. Well, what's temporary? I mean, when the Nazis started moving the Jews out of their homes, they just started isolating them to ghettos. They started isolating them to certain parts of the city, and they said they had to live there. And then when that wasn't enough, they started shipping them off to concentration camps. So is that what's going to happen here? If I choose not to get vaccinated because that's my choice, I live in America, I'm a citizen, I pay my taxes, I work hard. Is that what I should have to face here in the United States? That I should have to live in another facility until they decide that that's not good enough and they're going to ship me off to a camp? Absolutely outrageous. Whew. That just blows my mind. So here it poses a question. How far are Democrats willing to go in punishing the unvaccinated? 29% of Democrat voters would support temporarily removing parents' custody of their children if parents refuse to take the COVID-19 vaccine. You have 29% of the Democrats out there saying that parents shouldn't be allowed to have their children if they don't get vaccinated. Does the vaccine have anything to do with your ability to parent your child? I'm sure there's plenty of straight A students out there that have unvaccinated parents. I'm sure there's a bunch of honor roll students and kids that have perfect attendance records at school that have unvaccinated parents. Completely productive citizens in society that are unvaccinated. But apparently they're unfit. 29% of Democrats believe that you're unfit to parent your children if you get or refuse to get the vaccine. Again, this poll is from the Rasmussen Reports. You can go to rasmussenreports.com and you can find these reports. Again, it's got an entire list of all the different reports. They do daily polls on the president's popularity and all that stuff, which is at an all-time low. When he first got elected, apparently it was at like something like 56 or 57%. Today they reported it's at 43%. The same exact people that would have voted for him or did vote for him a year ago are now saying there's a percentage of those people that aren't that wouldn't vote for him, that don't like him. If he had to run again, they wouldn't vote for him. The survey also found that more black voters, 63%, than white voters, 45%, Hispanic voters, 55%, and other minorities, 32%, support Biden's vaccine mandates for government workers and employees of large companies. Okay, so that means 63% of black voters support it. Do you want to know, I guess, what the largest group of unvaccinated people is? It's minorities. It's actually, overall, it's minorities. By a percentage. By a percentage. Not the total number. Not the total number, because there's a smaller number of black individuals in this country than there are, white voters. So if you said that there was, it's not, I think it's like maybe 30%. But say that there's 50% as many black people as there are white people. So for every 100 white people in this country, there's 50 black people. Okay. Well, if there are 10 people within the black community that do not support getting vaccinated, okay, that represents 20% of that population. But if there are 10 people within the white community that don't get vaccinated, that only represents 10% of that population. So as a percentage, there are more black voters that aren't vaccinated than there are white voters. Again, get vaccinated if you want to get vaccinated. But that's the fact. Those are real numbers, and they're here in the Rasmussen reports. Oh, goodness. So here's what it does. I should read this. I should read this at the bottom. I'll read this last paragraph. President Biden's strongest supporters are most likely to endorse the harshest punishment against those who won't get the COVID-19 vaccine. Among voters who have a very favorable impression of Biden, 51% are in favor of the government putting the unvaccinated in designated facilities, and 54% favor imposing fines or prison sentences on vaccine critics. 54% of the Democrats believe that if you criticize the vaccine, you should be put in prison. Fucking outrageous. Again, the whole time Trump was in office, they called everybody on the right a bunch of Nazis. They called Trump a Nazi. They called all these other people Nazis. Well, if you guys want to look at that as the worst scalable idea to define somebody by, a Nazi, what you're talking about right now is the definition of that. You are acting just like Nazis by saying that people should be fined or put in prison for not going along with your way of thinking. I've never said that in my life. This is America. Say what the fuck you want to say. Your right to say what you want to say does not hinder mine. It's not more valuable. Your right to say what you want to say does not mean more than my right to say what I want to say. I may be right, you may be right. I may be wrong, you may be wrong. That's the point of civil conversation. That's civil discourse. But just because you don't like what I'm saying or don't agree with what I'm saying, you want to fucking fine me or send me to prison. Cancel culture. That's everybody wanting to cancel everybody out. Let's not actually deal with them. Let's not have to use our brains and come up with an idea of why what I'm saying is better than what they're saying. Let's just remove them from the equation altogether. Let's just eliminate them as if they don't exist at all. Then we don't have to worry about them. Then we got control of everything. Oh, we can say and do what we want because there's nobody here to contradict us. It's fucking outrageous. It's absolutely fucking outrageous to think that way. So, anyway, I bring all this up. I talk about it because, like I said, I had a video pulled down yesterday when, not one time. I mean, it's the same type of stuff I talk about in all my videos. But not one time. Get the vaccine. Don't get the fucking vaccine. That's your choice. Wear a mask. Don't wear a mask. I'm not a doctor. I know what I'm going to do, and I know what I want to do for my family. That's my choice. I mean, my mom is vaccinated. I'm sure that if my father had lived for the vaccine to be readily available, he would have gotten vaccinated. I have many friends to this day that are vaccinated. Good for them. It is what it is. But we live in America. We live in a place where you should be able to choose what you do and do not do on your own merit. But apparently, we now live in a society where everybody believes that what I do is going to affect them. When I mind my own fucking business. It's like when I go to the gym. I don't talk to anybody. I may say hi to one or two people here and there, but I go do my own fucking thing. I mind my own goddamn business. When I come home, I'm here at my house by myself. Do my own fucking thing. When I tinker around in the garage, I do my own fucking thing. But now I have a huge portion of the society, a huge portion of our American populace that believe that I should be fined, that I should be sent to a temporary living facility, that I should be confined to my house, or that I should be imprisoned. Because I make a personal choice for myself, my own medical choice for me. Without any judgment on anybody else for them making the medical choice for themselves. I get it. Everybody wants to say, well, if I don't do it, I'm being selfish. Well, I'm making my own decision. And like I said, I'm by my fucking self. So I think it's absolutely outrageous, the society we live in today. I think that the fucking censorship and the bullshit that we fucking live under today is outrageous. I think it's disgusting. Now, again, I record a podcast. I put it up on social media. I put it out on platforms. I agree to adhere to certain guidelines within those social media platforms in order to be able to post my content up there. That's the agreement I make. That's an exchange. That's the exchange we make. They provide a platform for me. I provide content. I put it up there. That's the exchange that we have. That's the contract. When I don't violate that contract, I shouldn't be fucking censored. I shouldn't have YouTube coming after me and telling me, okay, well, you know what? Hey, look, I don't know if you guys know this, but when you go to YouTube, you get there's 4 opportunities there. The first one is a warning. Warning means absolutely nothing. Nothing happens, but you're warned. You're told that you get a warning, and if you get another one, it's called a strike. You'll never get a second warning. The second one's called a strike. If you get a strike, you're not allowed to publish and post anything on the social media platform, on YouTube or anywhere else, for a week. The third one, I believe, is a month, depending on how bad it is. The third violation is a month. And the fourth one is a lifetime ban. You get banned for life from being able to make your content and posting on the social media. That's fucking outrageous. But again, hey, we make that agreement, we make that contract. But what you see is you see medical professionals. You see people that have medical degrees. If I'm not mistaken, the guy who invented the rDNA technology got banned from social media because he was criticizing how it was being used. And he got banned from social media. He invented the fucking technology. Who better than to discuss the way it should or should not be used than the guy who invented it? It's absolutely fucking crazy to me. But that's the society we live in, and it seems to be coming from one direction. It's only from one side. That poll did not say that there's 35 or 40% of Republicans who are in favor of imprisoning people or fining people or keeping them in their homes or saying they shouldn't have their kids. It didn't say that at all. This censorship is only coming from one direction, and it's fucking outrageous. And like I said, think about it from this perspective. If these platforms really wanted to do something, I've said now the word fuck probably 30 times. If they simply did not want me to use the word fuck, then they would be able to remove this show from the platform. Even though not one time have I ever attacked anybody individually, never one time have I used it directly at any individual. But if they wanted to, they could literally ban me from the platform if their policy said that fuck was a banned word. It's outrageous. It's absolutely fucking outrageous that this occurs. I hope everybody sees it, and I think that people are starting to wake up to that. I think that a large majority of people, again, when you look at these polls, it doesn't tell you how many people they surveyed. it did not say how many people that they surveyed identified as Democrat, Republican, or unaffiliated. It did not say how many people that were surveyed identified themselves as black, white, Hispanic, or another minority. It doesn't say those numbers. But again, it could be like the sliding scale where you have 50 black people and 100 black people. If 10 black people make a decision and 10 white people make a decision, well, it's 20%. That 10% black over here represents 20% of that population, and that 10% white only represents 10% of that population. So you could have those you could have those numbers, and I mean that would just be insane, especially if the 100 over here represented Democrats and the 50 over here represented Republicans, and they're still that high. You got a 58% over here. You understand, to get the 58% of 100, you have to have 58 people that say yes. To get the 58% of 50 over here, you only have to have like 26. So that's a huge fucking number over here. Again, I don't know if that's exactly how these how the poll was done. Doesn't give the demographics of everybody. It just tells the percentages. But it's still outrageous. It's still absolutely outrageous that it would occur. So we'll see. I'll end my show. I'll end today's episode the same way I end every other episode, is by saying thank you, guys. Thank you to everybody. I did make a post on Instagram, on the stories, on Facebook, that my episode was my last episode was banned from YouTube. Had a lot of people reaching out, communicating with me, and I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but it sucks. It creates kind of a mental thing to know that you're putting out there the content you put out, that I believe is good, that I believe is valuable, in certain ways. I believe that I believe that it should be out there, and to have it taken down because someone else's opinion of it that's not based on fact or reality, it's kind of disturbing. I mean, because there was a lot of other things I talked about yesterday in that show. I mean, I talked about the new law that was passed in Texas that's protecting high school age girls against the risk of ever having to worry about competing against someone who was born as a man. I talked about the fact that testosterone, I'm a man. I know testosterone separates me from women. And I say this wholeheartedly all the time. Women are better at everything than men, capable of being better at everything than men are, other than physical activities. You're never going to get a woman that's better at a man than football. There's always going to be a man that's better. It's not to say that, hey, you could have the best, like I love Serena Williams. I think she's amazing. But just because I'm a man doesn't mean I'm going to be better than her at tennis. No. But I don't think you're ever going to see the most dominant female tennis star in the world ever be better than the most dominant male tennis star in the world. I mean, we can look at speed skating, for example. Long track ice speed skating. Erin Jackson. She is a phenomenal athlete. First off, she's an amazing human being. She's a wonderful young lady. I met her years and years and years ago when she was very young. Wonderful young lady, very well spoken, very, very intelligent, wonderful individual, great human being. She is ranked number 1 in the world in the sprint, in the 500 meter. Ranked number 1 in the world in the 500 meter. And she is nearly 2 seconds slower than the number 1 ranked male in the 500 meter. Nearly 2 seconds slower. She's the number 1 female athlete for the 500 meter long track speed skating in the world. Not in the United States, not in Texas, not in Florida. In the world. And she's nearly 2 seconds slower than the fastest male in the world. Again, women are better at everything than men other than physical activity, and that comes from testosterone. And you shouldn't have girls in 7th and 8th grade and in high school having to worry about developing their skills as athletes and going off into college and possibly having pro careers, having that hindered because they got beat by somebody who was born biologically a male, hit puberty, has testosterone in their system, and now wants to compete as a female. What I also talked about is the fact that you never see it go in the opposite direction. You never see a female transitioning to a male and then wanting to compete against other males in a sport. You never see that. At the Olympics, we saw a male transition to a female and compete against other females in powerlifting. We have seen males transition from to female and compete at the college level in swimming against other females, blowing them the fuck out the water. They grew up as men with testosterone, raised as men, and now they want to swim against women. That's fucking horrible. So Texas passed a law that says girls are never going to have to worry about that in the state of Texas. If you were born biologically a male, you will not be able to compete against females in the state of Texas. Now, I don't know if that extends all the way up to the college level. Places like UT, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, Texas State University. I don't know if it extends up into those areas, but at least at the high school and middle school level, you're not going to have to worry about a girl, a female, born biologically female is never going to have to worry about having to compete against someone born biologically a male in a sport. And I think that's the right thing to do. So I talked about that yesterday, but that got taken down. So anyway, I want to say thank you. Thank you to everybody. Thank you for all of the love and support from everybody. Thank you guys for reaching out on a regular basis. Thank you guys for letting me know what you think about my show. I really appreciate it. I'm back, as you guys can see. I'm back here sitting kind of in my own little personal space. Instead of doing my own personal show from the studio, where I still will be doing my interviews, have some really great interviews scheduled. But I like doing my show here in this kind of personal space. I like it. It's a little bit better setup. It feels better to kind of sit here. I'm much closer engaged with the camera, where it makes me feel closer to you guys. So I like it here. I also am recording off of my my digital camera, my DSLR. I'm no longer using my 4K webcams, Logitech webcams, which are great, but the quality that I get out of this DSLR is much higher, and I like it a lot better. The setup is much better this way. So again, thank you guys. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. If you guys like what I'm doing, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, give me a thumbs up, set your alerts so that when I post new shows, you guys get the content. Help support the freedom of speech here. Help support what we're doing here. People like me, other channels here on YouTube, other podcasters that are just getting out there, and all they want to do is spread good information. Fun, maybe entertaining. They just they want to put out a show, and they think that what they're saying is valuable. Support those people, because differences of opinion is what has really made this country great. The differences between you and me is really what has made this country great. The ability for all of us to live and coincide together as one community, even though we don't all think the same, is what has made this country so amazing over the past 200 years. Everybody talks about the fact that this country was built on immigrants, people coming in. Well, that's the differences in culture. The reason that the society has grown so well is because we embraced all of these cultures from all over the world, and we brought these people in. And there's people that worked hard from here, and they built this, and they built that, and they did all these amazing things. Well, they didn't all have the same opinion. The ability to communicate and the thought patterns and the process of which we go through to make decisions and discuss things is based on our life experiences and who we are as individuals. And it boils down to our differences of opinion. And that's what's really made our country so amazing and so strong, because we are allowed to be different. We're allowed to have difference of opinion. We're not unified all in one place. It's like when I put a poll up on Instagram and Facebook, the answers that I typically love are the ones that are not the popular answers. It's the one that was the hard answer, the one that someone said that you can feel it is true. And they feel that, and they believe that when they answer that question, because some of the other stuff, it's just it's popular, so they just answer it that way because it just makes it easy to answer it that way. I get that, but we all have. I respect the ones that really answer the hard question that really contradicts the way people really think, and that's what makes things great, is us being able to have a conversation on an equal platform where your opinion is different than mine, and we have a discussion, and we can agree to disagree, but we have a civil conversation about it, and maybe I learned something, maybe you learned something. We can walk away still ultimately having the same opinion, but we gain something from that conversation. That's where a place like Facebook and YouTube is valuable. Someone like me comes out here, I put my opinion on here, I put up my show. Someone else comes up and puts up their opinion that's not similar to mine. And they put their opinion out there, and we share it, and I watch their show, and they watch mine, and we all learn something. That's where these social media platforms can be so useful. But you got to be open-minded to it. And you can't be like this corporation that makes this unilateral decision that says there's no opportunity, there's no gray area for that stuff, because in reality, the best ways to learn are in the gray area. The most things that are produced, the way that things most are effective in society, are within the gray areas. It's not these defined rules and laws that everybody has to abide within that stay here where you have advancements in technology. It's people stepping outside of the box that are making you question your life, your existence, to make you grow and learn. They're not just going along with the status quo. So that's the way we have to think as a society. We need to be better. We need to not think about censoring people. We need to not think about shutting people down. We need to think about engaging people and having a conversation with them. I've done this a couple times this week on Facebook, where I posted some things where I thought they were funny. It wasn't intended to be mean or to anybody else, but people had an issue with it. There was people that argued about it, and they got upset because of what I posted. They wanted to put their opinion up there, and I engaged them. And never one time did I tell them to shut the fuck up and don't respond over here and go away, and I don't give a fuck what you have to say. I would engage them, and I would say, well, here's why I think you're wrong. But that's me. I'm willing to have that conversation because I do believe as a society we can do better. I love this country. I love the people in it, and I'm grateful for being here. And I want to do my part from this period of my life to contribute to the intellect, to society. Maybe I entertain you a little bit. Maybe I educate you a little bit. That's just who I am at this point. So thank you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it, and I will talk to you guys very soon.